Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are here at City Hall, May 15th, 2018. It's 6 o'clock. We're here at City Hall at 116th West Bridge Street, Granbury, Texas, and the Granbury City Council regular meeting is now called to order. I'd like to call upon Ken Irwin with the Brazos Pregnancy Center to do our invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge, led by Councilman Corrigan. All stand, please. Thank everybody for showing up tonight. I've got a good crowd out there. We're going to start out the meeting tonight with a very special presentation. I'd like to call upon some members of the Beautification Council. I think we have Penny Snyder, along with her grandson Finn out there, Patsy Hurd, Roy Kelly, Janet Lill, and Kathy Mobley. Could you all come forward, please? And Brenda Hyde, I'm sorry. Brenda, sorry. You can go ahead and face the crowd there. I'm going to read a little. Folks, the Beautification Council, as the city of Granbury takes really good pride in the work that it does to make our community beautiful. However, many people do not know that many of the additions and the upgrades to the citizens and the visitors enjoy are due to the generosity of the Lake Granbury Area Beautification Council. For those of you that do not know them, the Beautification Council is an organization that promotes a cleaner and more beautiful Granbury through local fundraising projects. The members of this group love our community and they work to make and keep it beautiful. Over the years, the Beautification Council has fundraised and donated to a variety of projects. Tonight, we'd like to recognize 3 of the most recent donations from the Beautification Council for the projects that enhance the beauty of Granbury. Following the streetscape construction on our downtown square, the Beautification Council donated $7,836 for benches to be placed around the square. Yes, thank you. These 8 benches the city was unable to purchase with the donated funds are used daily by those shopping, dining, or attending the events on the square. The Beautification Council also stepped up to help renovate the public restrooms behind the Opera House on the square. The public restrooms are regularly used by locals and the visitors alike, and the updates enhanced the restrooms' usability, the safety, and made it more pleasant place. The Beautification Council donated the new LED lighting, motion-activated sink faucets, and the installation of the new flooring. So if you haven't seen that in there, it's really, really nice looking. And finally, just outside the downtown square, what was once a plot of dirt are now beautifully landscaped areas surrounding the lights at the intersection of Business 377 and Loop 567. The Beautification Council donated the donation of $2,100 funded all the landscaping, the design materials, labor to landscape, and that heavily used intersection. The City Council and the city staff, we strive to make our city a beautiful place to visit and to live and to work. But without the hard work from the members of the Lake Area Granbury Beautification Council, many of the features that we utilize and enjoy every day would not have been possible. The community will continue to enjoy the gifts from the Beautification Council for many years to come. And as you know, they have donated several other gifts. If you look down through the park, you see the LaRoe picnic area that is donated down there, where you got some green space where you can enjoy a lunch or even a small meeting place there. And also you see the Jewel Ball Fountain in the Shanley Park, that many people take pictures there. They like to go there and watch that, and the kids even play in the water there. And they also had the Bob Bradley Fountain and the waterfall there. And also the Christmas trees and decorations that was donated to the HGMA. So there's many things that the Beautification Council, and it goes on and on. And these are some of the present members that are on the Beautification Council now. So with that, I want to thank from the council and the staff. We want to thank all of the Beautification Council for all that they've done for our beautiful city. Thank you very much. No. At this time, we'll move into our consent agenda. Those items being, number one, consider approving the City Council meeting minutes of May the 1st, 2018 regular meeting. Number two was to consider approving the revised Matlock Water Well Agreement to provide portable water waste treated water between Withdraw, Hollis, Whitworth, and the City of Granbury. Number three was to consider approving the resolution number 18-08, approving a water and sewer utility tariff change proposed by Aqua Texas for retail utility service within the corporate limits of the City of Granbury. And number four was to consider adopting resolution 1809, approving the City of Granbury investment policy. Number five, consider adopting ordinance number 1832, consolidating ordinances related to the Public Television Channel Advisory Board and updating the Government Access Television Channel programming guidelines. And number six, consider adopting ordinance 1833, amending the general fund and the utility fund budget for the fiscal year 2017 through 18. Council, you've had an opportunity to look over these items in your agenda packet. Are there any items on there that you wish to change or to remove off of the consent agenda at this time? Councilman Allen, has you got a question on number four? Or? It's the review of the policy of Granbury and the council to review the investment funds by the director, and we can talk a little more on that if you wish to. We can pull that off and have, I think Ava could give a report on that, right, Chris? Okay. So we'll leave it on the consent agenda then. Any more questions or concerns, council? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda at this time. I have a motion by Councilman and a second by Councilman Ryder. Any more discussion on the consent agenda, council? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The consent agenda is approved. Next, we'll move into our deliberation agenda. The first item being a public hearing. And this was a tabled item at the council meeting prior, and it was to consider adopting ordinance number 1830, approving a request of Historic Granbury Merchants Association for an SUP to allow the carnival May 21st, 2018. I'm going to call upon Chris Kaufman at first here to see if he can give us a updated staff report on this one, if you would, please, Chris.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor. I went on vacation 4 days last week, so I understand there was some communication that took place while I was gone between HGMA and some of the residents or something. So I think it'd probably be good just to let any questions that the council may have, address those with Mr. Hackett, since he's the chairman of that group. And, anything, I guess our sound isn't working.
Mine is.
That's all that matters.
That's all that matters. Mine's okay.
Yeah, that button.
There you go. You're okay.
What
All
I
right,
need, what
we're
I
good
need,
now.
Rick?
Check.
You hear me?
We can hear you now.
All right, so
Yes.
I think it'd probably be best just to let the, council ask questions of HCMA, and maybe they resolved everything. I'm not sure. There was a list of things that they were gonna address.
Yes, and it, like I said, we will continue to have a public hearing here, but if there's no more questions from the council, there are some raised concerns that the council and some citizens had. So with that, we'll call Mr. Ken Hackett, and maybe he can address some of those items right now.
Thank you, Council. I appreciate having the opportunity to speak again tonight. We want to thank you for the opportunity on all the HGMA members and the ability to follow up on the concerns raised by you and by the neighbors in Gemstone Estates. I want to personally thank Mr. Corrigan for the table in motion for allowing us to be here tonight. We certainly want to have the carnival to happen, and we hope that we've done the right thing in the future. After our meeting was tabled, our SUP was tabled, we first want to tell you some of the things we've done to update the carnival. First of all, we met with the representatives of the Gemstone Estates to go over the issues that they raised tonight at the council, and would like to thank Councilman Reiner for that invitation to meet with those homeowners. So we did that. 4 of us on our board met with the residents. So to address concerns, I've got 7 points here, or 6 more points to bring up. First of all, traffic flow. We have amended, as you see on the site plan, how traffic will flow into and out of the dealership, so that we do not have two-way traffic. We've met with the general manager and manager of the Toyota dealership, and if you'll see, we'll be routing people to the right coming in and coming out what they know as the employee parking lot through the main drive coming between the 2 main buildings. So this way, we feel like we'll speed traffic coming in and out. We also are going to close the crossing at that entrance on 377, requiring northbound traffic to go up to the light, basically do a left-hand U-turn, and then come down the shoulder, so there'd be no crossing the high-speed traffic during the hours of the carnival. I spoke to Chief Galvin about that, and he had no problem with that. So unless there's something new that I don't know, we will be barricading that crossing. Thirdly, we discussed the gate operation with the manager and general manager with the access onto Sardius Drive. Now, to be frank with you, they do not mind the traffic coming through the dealership, but they certainly will close those gates if it becomes a problem, and certainly they'll be closed at night or after they close. So the only gate that will be open to get in and out of the carnival will be there at the main entrance as shown on the graphic. Would also like to bring to you some understanding of our parking numbers. I went back out there and measured the field, the other parking areas, and you see the tabulation there. We have some 336 spaces if we are inefficient, meaning there's about 50 more spaces in that field area if we wanted to crowd cars, but I wanted to be conservative. We also added 50 spaces behind the dealership where they call them employee parking. The managers there said there was no problem parking in there after they close. We will add those 50 spaces, and it should help immensely. If for any reason we were so overwhelmed with traffic, Mr. Durant's property extends well beyond the field behind the dealership, and we could park another 200 cars if need be. So I don't think we have a parking issue. Now, I may have trouble to park 500 cars with a number of volunteers, but we will work that out somehow, some way. But we always have 2 or 3 parking attendants in the fields when we're operating. So if you have some teenagers that would like to work that weekend, we have them contact Brenda. We've worked them in the past. Another thing that we did, and we worked this out with the carnival, is that we're removing the parking fees. So there is no incentive for anybody to park off-site to address the gemstone concerns. If we can park more than 300 cars out there, I hope we have that problem, but I do not expect it, because you asked for the numbers from last year, and I have them here. Last year we collected $8,458 in parking fees. Now, I don't know why 58, because we had round numbers, but we probably let someone in for less money than $5 or $10. We do that quite regularly, especially when we see the family struggling with any amount of money. So we removed any parking fee. So it will be publicized on the banners and in the advertising in the newspaper that it will be free parking. So hopefully that will stop anybody from wanting to park off-site and walk a half a block, 2 blocks, 3 blocks, whatever it might be. I also spoke to the owners behind Mr. Durant's property, and he agreed to allow us to blockade that entrance off Old Granbury Road. So we'll put barricades there just to keep people from winding their way up through that field and parking somewhere. It's not an issue to us because there's no parking fees, but we think controlling the traffic would be wiser, and we don't want people out there four-wheeling or whatever they might do. So hopefully that'll help. Finally, we also improved and expanded our security. We are hiring 2 off-duty police officers, City of Granbury police officers, to handle the carnival. Obviously, we'll have one in the carnival and at all times, and one roaming the area. If we see problems with potential parking off-site, then obviously I was instructed last week or 2 weeks ago that we couldn't stop them from parking, but we certainly could find out why they're parking there when there's free parking to be had on site. This does not include any parking that we may put in front of the Montessori school. I really just did not want to use that unless it's an emergency, like overflow. We're overwhelmed with traffic, and there is a way to get traffic over there to that without turning in at their entrance, mainly because I didn't want to confuse the public. So I didn't want to create 2 entrances. So we left it as it is, but there's probably at least another 50, 75 cars that could be parked there if we absolutely had to, but I'd rather park them in the field behind. And I think that addressed all of the particular comments the neighbors had. And we will, of course, have banners up during the event and just before the event to convey free parking. So I don't know what else you might have in mind. I'm here to answer your questions and then raise and respond to any other comments that the neighbors might have.
Council, any questions for Mr. Hackett?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Reiner?
this is not necessarily a question, but a statement. I want to let you and the HGMA and the 4 folks that were there that night meeting with the neighbors, I want to say thank you, because they felt like their voice was heard. And to me, being up here is not only about helping run the city, but it's about compromise. And I do think that you've really gone above and beyond to try to make some even financial sacrifices to help out with this situation, to ensure our safety, and with the parking issue and a police officer roaming around just to ensure that we are okay. So I do appreciate that. I do know that we have some neighbors in the audience tonight. I don't know if some of them want to get up and speak since the public.
We've got someone.
Okay.
Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that. Well, we appreciate you for allowing us to, and the invitation.
Also, Mr. Hackett, I think one of the things that was brought up, I don't know if you had any research on that one, but there was an issue on the people living in the RVs or staying in the RVs. Was that addressed, or is there?
Well, we think we've got a good spot for them. There's a little terraced area behind the main parking lot, that will accommodate what few they have. There's usually 4 or 5, and they will park there, and it kind of puts them down below grade behind the trees. But I have to meet with the carnival operator when he shows up Monday morning, and we lay out things and go over any things. And he may have an issue of that, but I think it'll be it will not be imposing whatsoever.
Okay, Council, any more questions for Mr. Hackett?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Mobley?
thanks for meeting with them. I'll echo what Trish said earlier. But you made one comment about traffic, and you said we've got the traffic problem resolved, but we will close a portion if it becomes a problem.
That is their gate onto Sardius. They want to monitor that before they say they close it during the daytime. It'll be closed at night.
Okay, so who's going to monitor it, and how do we know when is cutoff time and when is leave it open time?
Well, they close around 6 p.m. We know that'll be one time it'll be closed.
Okay.
So well before the nighttime.
So it'll close and then they'll reroute through the.
Well, they'll be coming through that entrance that you see on the diagram all day long. That will be the only entrance in and out.
Okay. And then you said, let's see, no parking fees, no reason to park anywhere else unless there's a line, and then everybody looks for the path of least resistance. And I know we can't block the roads, but my main concern throughout all of this was the traffic on 377. And you're assuring us that we can, and maybe this is a Mitch Galvan question, but we can block off that turnaround there on 377 without a problem?
I discussed it with, all we talk about is blockading it so people would go up to the light and turn around.
Okay.
The whole purpose of not having a line, Mr. Councilman, is that no parking fees there's no reason to slow the traffic coming in and out. They'll just pull in and go to their parking places. There's no stopping the traffic as they come in and collect the parking fee.
Well, so you're saying we are going to block it off because they're going to have to go to the light and turn around? Is that what you're saying? And Mitch is shaking his head no, so I'm confused
Okay.
at what reality is at this point.
Well, I'll be happy to defer.
We can't block any highway turnaround period.
That is not a crossing. That is not a crossing.
That is my concern,
Right.
because families are going to say, there's the entrance, here's a turnaround, I'm going that way instead of hitting the light. And it's 55 miles an hour through there. Now, I don't live in that neighborhood, so it's probably going to affect me least of anybody up here, but I'm still concerned as a safety factor if we cannot minimize the risk there. Because if you have a family, if you have a car full of 1 or 2 adults and a whole herd of kids, and there's in the rear end of that car sticking out in a state highway, everybody in this room has got to realize there's an issue there. And that's my main concern. I mean, what happens in the Toyota dealership? Hey, I get it. They want as much traffic as they can get. But what happens on the main street there is my main concern, and that's what it was 2 weeks ago.
I would, if that is the issue, then I would assume the Gemstone residents do that every day. They use that crossing.
But you're talking about 1 or 2 cars at a time, not several cars,
Right.
and backing up both ways to get in there.
Right.
So if you're looking at this as this going to be a successful event, you should think more than 1 car is going to show up every 10 minutes.
I
Right.
believe we do. I did not understand from our conversation that we could not do it. I thought our conversation was it could be done.
While you're saying yes, he's shaking his head no.
I understand, but I specifically addressed that issue, and I did not get that comment, so I apologize.
With Mr. Galvan?
Yes. So we didn't communicate.
The only thing that we discussed blocking off is
I didn't hear it.
that turn they're off 377. That weekend.
The fact is, my understanding, that is not a turn crossing there, because there's no,
Mitch, can we get you
Mitch, can you come on up here, Mitch?
there is no turn lane there.
No, I understand that. I've driven it several times. But there's a turnaround. If you're heading east on 377, there's a turnaround there that the Gemstone folks
They use it every day.
routinely take to
Yes.
get back to their neighborhood. My question is,
that-
can we block that off or not?
That was intentionally put in there so that they could, traffic could enter into that dealership. That is a turn avenue, whatever you want to call it. There's not a designated turn lane there like there aren't in several places here. But that road, that cut through was put in there specifically by TxDOT to go into that dealership. So that is a part of the highway, and we can't touch it unless TxDOT gives us approval to shut it down. And that takes a letter to TxDOT, and they've got to tell us yes or no. So
And
we're way past that point, I believe.
And that's my biggest issue here. I mean, while it would be a nuisance for the whole neighborhood to fill up with cars of folks going to this is a safety issue to me. And that's the biggest hurdle for me to get through this. So I hope you understand. And if there's a way to work through this before the end of the month, that would be lovely. I just don't see that we've moved in that direction.
So Mitch, what did you think Ken was addressing with you?
Well, he had discussed about blocking off the back end of the dealership to where they couldn't get through to the residential area, not 377.
Right.
I could never give anybody permission
Okay.
to do that. So if there was a misunderstanding there, I'm sorry, but 377 is untouchable
Right.
by
agree.
us in any way, shape, or form without TxDOT's permission.
Say, Mitch,
Yes,
don't they have turn lanes on both sides there,
No,
just on the coming up?
None.
no, there's not a turn lane there at all.
Neither one.
Most people go over to the shoulder and to get up into that, but there is not a designated turn lane there. And that's always been a problem in our mind of why they put that there without having a designated turn lane in that spot. But they did what they did. So it's not a designated lane. Most people pull over to that as much of the shoulder as they can when they go to turn left into the dealership. I've seen others come almost to a complete stop to.
But there is
to
one
turn.
at the main intersection to go in the neighborhood, a turn lane,
No,
on the other side?
None at all.
Man,
yeah, oh, I know.
I can't believe TxDOT did that.
Welcome to Granbury.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess and Mitch, you will be included in this as well. If we do have, let's say this does pass, and we do have a pretty good crowd coming from both directions wanting to get in there, how do we handle the backup on both sides with either law enforcement or something to keep 55-mile-an-hour vehicles plowing into cars that are wanting to turn left or right?
At this point,
What do y'all do on traffic control?
nothing. Not out there.
I've not seen you do traffic control. You couldn't have traffic control out there?
Could we have traffic
Yeah.
control out there? That is a very bad spot, people. Anybody that's driven that area knows that is just a huge spot to put anybody standing out there in the roadway to try to slow traffic down.
I'm not
Had
trying-
we had previous, if time, we could have arranged for signs, we could have arranged for all kinds of stuff to be up there, so slow down, whatever kind of a deal. But now you're talking about hiring officers to stand out there at night with flashlights trying to move people over to a lane.
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting
That's
that.
like HEB. It's hard to get an officer to go work in traffic.
Yeah, that's
Right.
like
It's dangerous.
playing roulette
I don't,
out there.
well, what I'm saying is that we've already committed to hire officers. An officer could be there to push the traffic up to the stoplight, turn around and come down
Oh,
that
you're
shoulder.
talking about right there in that turnaround? Oh, no.
Yeah, sure could, but
No,
So let's talk about that. He's saying you can, you're saying you can't. Legally, we cannot do that.
no.
Okay. I think I'm done, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Council, any more questions for Mitch or Mr. Hackett? Councilman Couch?
As far as having people on the, is it possible, Mitch, excuse me,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Stay up here, Mitch.
if we did have directionals that guided people up to the stoplight as opposed to, encouraging them to go up to the stoplight and doing a U-turn there, is that something we can entertain?
I'm not going to entertain anything of taking away an entrance off of 377, a road, a part of the roadway that belongs to TxDOT without TxDOT saying that I can. We don't have any event in this town ever that involves a TxDOT roadway that we do anything to without their permission. So I cannot sit here and tell you, yes, I will go do that, or I can go do that, unless TxDOT tells me that I can. So as far as doing anything with shutting down any turn, lane, anything, it's not going to happen.
That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm talking about signage that would have directionals on, it would say fair parking with a straight arrow, and then there would be another arrow that would move you into the where the light is, that would bring you back. So you're encouraging people to go past the intersection as opposed to crossing the intersection. The one without the light.
I don't know. I can tell you this. I don't care what kind of signage you have. The minute people going east see all the people going west pulling in there to go to the carnival, they are going to turn there to go into the carnival. They're going to see people turning in there to go to the carnival, and it's going to say carnival parking free, and they're going to say, why do I need to go down to the lot? I'm going to turn here. That's the only way doing anything of regulating traffic from going into that area is to have TxDOT say, we will allow you to shut it down. That's the only way that's going to happen. And the only way it's going to stop it. I don't care what kind of signs you put on there. Well, the minute they see people turning into that lot where it says free parking, they're going to turn right there to go in. Unless something's stopping them from doing it, and a signage saying this way is not going to do it. I can check. I mean, I can call and say if they'll allow me to short notice letter to see if they give us approval, but I can't guarantee they will. We usually do this months ahead of time for this kind of stuff. So, I mean, I can at least do that tomorrow if you want me to. But I can't guarantee whether or not I'll get an answer back that quickly or a positive one on top of that.
If you got, how do you feel about it if you did get approval as far as the safety issues?
If we get approval, it's going to call. So you're moving a backup from one spot a little bit further down to another backup. That's all you're doing. And then you're going to have them all doing U-turns to try and come back, and that's going to cause another issue. So you're not solving. You're just moving it. Is all you're doing. The only good thing about it is that it's controlled by a light at the other end, where it's not controlled by a light where it's currently at. So, it'll be fine with me if we can get it done and they go to the light and do a U-turn and turn around. I have no issues with it whatsoever.
You don't have so.
If TxDOT says we'll blockade it for you, I have no problems. But the first question they're going to ask is, how's Durant going to feel about that intersection being shut down for their business?
He's already approved it. The general manager.
Well, I'd have to. Well,
I'll get him a letter.
He'd have to give me a letter to be able to show TxDOT that they don't have a problem.
I met with him on that issue.
Does he own the property or TxDOT?
Sir?
Who owns the property, him or TxDOT,
What property?
that you want to shut down?
TxDOT.
It's in the islands. It's
Yeah,
in the meeting.
yeah, it's not.
The jury has no say of it.
Well, yes, it does, because they specifically put that in there for his business. So if we want to shut down an entryway into their business without their approval, TxDOT's not going to allow that to happen anyway. So we would have to say the dealership is fine with this because the event's at the dealership, and they want it to be safety. Then they would say okay. But if we didn't have that approval from the dealership, they wouldn't allow it.
Glad to know that.
So, assuming optimism here that they would approve that,
Mhm.
that your safety concerns about the entire egress, ingress is alleviated what percentage?
Very little. You got to remember, you're talking about, you're concerned about traffic backing up with people wanting to turn left, correct? Okay, the turn lane at the light is not a long turn lane. So you're still going to have people backed up on 377 trying to turn or do a U-turn at that light. So either way, you're going to have a lane occupied on 377 that's going to back up. Like I said, you're moving it just down a ways. And the only difference is you have a light regulating when they can actually go. But it's still going to back up on one lane of traffic.
Council, any more questions, concerns? Thank you. At this time, I'm going to open up the public hearing. We do have a couple of speakers that would like to speak, and I'm going to call upon them first. The first speaker being Abby Taylor.
Mr. Mayor, Council, thank you for taking this matter so seriously. This is very important to us, and we really appreciate your time and concern on this. As I said, my name is Abby Taylor. I'm a resident of Gemstone Estates, and I'm speaking on behalf of the neighborhood as a whole. Last week, we did have an opportunity to meet with Mr. Hackett, and we really are very appreciative of, oh, there you are, very appreciative of that opportunity to discuss some of it. It was really productive. Mr. Hackett has been working on our concerns and addressed a number of them. So the following is basically the neighborhood's final thoughts in response to this. We still have a number of concerns about the parking situation. Mr. Hackett has generously made the arrangements with the carnival operators to provide public parking at no charge to the general public. But he has said that last year's daily parking numbers were approximately 80 cars a day. If you average about 4 people a car, that's about 320 people that are coming in. The attendance numbers suggest there's a lot more than that coming into the carnival every day. So where did they park? Well, there was a $10 price tag, so most people probably parked off-site. I'm sure there was some walk-ups, but for the most part, they found their own parking elsewhere. So we really don't know how many cars to expect to come to the carnival, and this year we're looking at a 4-day window as opposed to the long term of the past 4 years of the carnival. So we can expect significantly higher daily numbers. I don't believe that 320 spaces is going to be sufficient for that. The neighborhood as a whole feels that way. The overflow for the Montessori school is not an option for Friday. That is their last day, their graduation. So they will be using those for that day. And we also had a concern, if there's inclement weather, that field is a no-go. That's, I mean, it's Texas. If you start driving around a field in the rain, we all know how it's going to go. So that brings it right back to 136 available paved spaces. At 80 people a day that paid to park last year, I think we know that that is nowhere near sufficient. So it's going to result in off-site parking in our neighborhood. That's our main parking concern, is that we have a limited amount of space already in our neighborhood, and that is just going to eat it all up. It's going to be our graduation weekend here in town as well. We have out-of-town family coming. Our parking is going to be gone. The next thing we had was that Mr. Hackett had spoken to Chief Galvan about hiring the 2 off-duty officers. In our meeting, it doesn't really help our concerns for safety because Mr. Hackett had stated that one officer, as he said, was for the carnival and the other was for the parking area and Durant's car lot. He doesn't say anything about it coming out into our neighborhood, which was our safety concern. So I don't really see that that's going to be of any change to the things that we had issue with. We also would like to raise a concern regarding a retention pond. If you look at the map that's up on the board, you'll see the first arrow that swoops, there's a square. That's a retention pond with no fence around it, and it could be like, I think it's about 20 feet down in there. It's sloped, but in the dark or with kids running around. That's a big safety issue for us as well. And the final thing that we had concerns with was what was just addressed as well. It's the ingress egress off of 377. Regardless of the fact that it's going to back up for big long lineups and so on, it's a big safety issue for us because it's going to cut off access into our neighborhood. Trying to get through there, we are going to essentially lose, for the duration of our carnival, we're going to lose the entrance to 377, which does create an issue concerning emergency vehicles and so on accessing our neighborhood. They will have to use the backside entrance because I've seen it when there's traffic, congestion. Every afternoon I've watched emergency vehicles try to travel 377, and if the lanes are full, it really gets tricky on bringing them in. So that was basically the concerns we had left from the meeting that we had. We appreciate your time. We appreciate everything you're doing, Mr. Hackett, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Adrienne Shelton. Oh, I'm sorry, Skelton.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm Adrienne Skelton. I live on Jason Lane in Gemstone Estates, and I'll be very brief. The only thing I really wanted to address was first to tell in front of you all that we really appreciate Mr. Hackett and HTMA working with us, and they really did go a long way for doing the best he could to address most of, like, the lion's share of our issues. One of my main concerns was the 377 traffic issue, and it seems to be a little bit unsure now, but one thing I just wanted to say was maybe looking forward, regardless of what happens with this carnival now, perhaps we should be revisiting the regulations associated with SUPs so that HTMA can find a great permanent place to hold the carnival, and Granbury can continue to benefit from it, because they did tell us something about the history and the work that was done to get the carnival in Granbury, and we really would like to see it go forward and see them succeed in that if possible. That's all.
At this time, would anybody in the audience like to speak as a in the public hearing? We have one more.
Rhonda Rogers, 202 South Lancaster. I don't live in Gemstone, but concerned citizen taxpayer. I was here at your last council meeting listening to this discussion, and respectfully to you, Mayor and Council and Mr. Hackett, I just think that this is, it didn't really have to play out this way. I wish that it had been presented to you as a council with enough time to make informed decisions. And I feel that we've really put our chief of police on the spot to try and accommodate this request. And we're hearing what he's saying, that he cannot see that this is going to be a safe situation any way you look at it. And so, respectfully, I would ask the council to seriously consider rethinking this particular carnival. I support the carnival. I take my grandchildren to it, and I loved it, and I still love it at the rodeo grounds, and especially. But I just cannot be in agreement that this is a safe location for this carnival, given all the traffic and all the problems. I mean, we're hearing it over and over and over again, and I don't think anybody wants to be responsible for any really bad traffic situations there on 377. So for my ears, I'm not hearing a good resolution other than perhaps changing the date of the carnival so that a better location could be found, the carnival still happen, and that it be that we can all join together and help it be productive and profitable. So thank you for letting me speak.
Does anybody else wish to speak from the public? One more speaker. This lady looks familiar.
I live on Sardius Boulevard. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak. One little thing I want to say.
Go ahead and announce your name for the people that don't know you.
My name is Pat Andress. I live on Sardius.
There you go, Pat.
When you're coming down and you're going to do that U-turn till you go back to Sardius, I do that every day, a couple, 2 or 3 times a day. When you pull over, and I pull over as far as I can, I get honked at, I get people that they can't get over because there's another lane of traffic. And so it's scary to me. And I have gotten to where I go back around Granbury Road, but that is extremely dangerous there because people are very impatient when you try to pull over and slow down and make a U-turn. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other people like to speak in the public hearing? Mr. Hackett?
I'd just like to follow up on a couple of comments that was made earlier.
Go ahead.
Graduation, I hear a lot about that. If there is graduation, it's just kind of like when we had the carnival in the fall on Friday night football nights. We didn't have big crowds on Friday because the kids were doing other things. So I think Friday night's not so much our concern. It'd be Saturday and Sunday when everybody's off and so forth. But we did not have big crowds on Friday night when we had it in the fall. And there was a football game. So with graduation, I think there's going to be a lot of people doing other things. As for the graduation of the Montessori school, that's why we didn't plug any of that parking in. So we didn't want to presume that we would interfere with them in any way. But I don't know if they're actually holding their graduation there, but they might be. I don't know. Joni did not tell me that. Weather, our experience has been when it rains, they don't come. It is not a no, it's a no come. It's not a no go, it's a no come. And they clear out. So unless we had rains continuously, that ground's pretty sloped. It's covered in grass. We do intend to mow it. But other than that, it's a no come if the weather turns bad. So that's the last thing we want to see because nobody shows up. We'll try to address the officer issue. The idea was to keep one officer patrolling the carnival and one out in the front of the parking area, the dealership toward Sardius to make sure there's nobody doing exactly what they're concerned about. Obviously, we can go over there and ask them why they're parking over there if they were to do that, but I'm not sure how else we could do much more. We're trying to do everything we can. I'm not sure how you extrapolate and logically think that we're going to block the entrance to Sardius in any way. All the traffic will be pulling right before the Sardius turn, so there would be none of our traffic would be in the shoulder turning right into Sardius. And the gates will be closed at night, so there's none of that traffic is going to be able to get over and through. What we do expect is kids and family members walking over from Gemstone to the carnival, and we don't want to restrict that, and we certainly don't think that they cut through the front of the dealership where all the lighting is, it would be a problem. Certainly the manager of the dealership was not concerned about that. And finally, the last comment about a date and moving it, that's an impossibility both in time and contract with the carnival operator. His year is booked out 1 year in advance, so we're kind of fortunate to have this Memorial Day weekend. We certainly will strive to find a different location if possible. Maybe we could look at the SUP requirements in other zoning categories to open up opportunities to us, but there's only 2 zoning categories in the entire city that allows this to happen. Thank you.
Mr. Hackett? Did anybody else wish to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Council, do you have any questions or concerns or any final statements?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilperson Reiner?
Again, I want to tell the HGMA folks, thank you so much for meeting with the neighbors. I know that they greatly appreciate it. You heard from them yourselves. After having heard the fact that we are no longer able to, or apparently we're not ever able to block off that turnaround, I really have some concerns about 377 as brought up by Councilman Mobley. That is an accident waiting to happen. You heard one of my neighbors say it, coming up on that turnaround. Those folks are coming out of the neighborhood, coming north on 377 at 55, ready to get up to 65. And a long line of folks slowing down to turn to get in there, which I agree, they're going to see it come in that direction. I think it's going to be a big problem. 377 is a little caveat that has become a big problem, I think, without that blockage on that turnaround. That's all I have to say.
Council, any more questions?
Mayor,
Councilman Allen?
you know, I think anywhere on 377 is a traffic problem, period, daytime or night. I can understand what Councilman Mobley's saying, Councilman Reiner's saying. If this was a 10-day carnival, we'd have 10 days of this problem. It looks like we got actually about 3 days of it that'll happen. I'm not, or 4, I'm sorry, whoever said that. I'm not saying this is the best location by no means. I think it's something that downtown merchants next year is going to have to start the day after the carnival, looking for locations, or start figuring this stuff out. Like the lady said, it's a lot of burden on us to come here with a short time and make a decision. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But, you know, this is, we're voting for something here. If they have an accident, then it looks like we're liable. It's not that way. We vote on things every day, commercial-wise, residential areas, that traffic flow is not perfect. I probably got less invested in this than Mr. Mobley because I live 3 blocks further down than he does. But still, again, it is a dangerous situation. I'd ask the downtown merchants to do everything in their power to correct it. I don't think we should turn it down because of this. Y'all have went and worked on it. I think we needed more time. Yes, I agree to that. But if we stop it now, I'm not for sure we can have another one next year if we cancel it after they already scheduled us. And that's what scares me. And I'm for going ahead and doing it for the 4 days, 5 days, the 26th through the 29th, or whatever it is.
Council, any more discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Reiner?
I don't want to beat a dead horse, as Councilman Mobley likes to say, but it's not a matter of liability in my mind. It's a matter of conscience. If there's an accident on 377 and I have been out on this dais and approved something that I know walking into it is a hazard, that's on me. And I don't want that responsibility. I don't think that, I don't think it's worth the risk. That's it. If you see that area at 6 o'clock at night, driving into that neighborhood, it is hazardous already. And I don't want folks coming in from out of town, folks leaving from in town to go back out of town, having an accident in Granbury on my watch.
Mayor, I'll follow up with that one and say that whenever Mike Brown and Tom Durant was trying to put in their dealership, we heard the same thing about traffic and all that. I don't think we got it out there now like they thought we were. And I'm not for sure it's legal that Ms. Reiner can vote here since she lives in that neighborhood. Is that a conflict of interest?
Actually, I asked the city attorney that very question before this all started, and it's okay for me to be on this dais.
Okay, can I ask the attorney that? What's the ruling on that? How come?
There's no conflict. She doesn't have any,
She's got an interest in the house.
she's not gaining any economic benefit. She's not part of the carnival, and she doesn't have an interest in that, which is the business that would be going in. There's no conflict. There is no conflict.
Council, any more discussion? If no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the said SUP
So
as
moved.
discussed. I have a motion by Councilman Allen. Looking for a second. If no second, it fails for lack of no second. Next, we'll move into item number 8, consider approving an engineering service agreement with Hibson Todd for the work orders of 001-005, and I'm going to call upon our city manager, Chris Kaufman, to give us a staff report on this one, if you would, please, Chris.
Thank you. At this time, we have Keith Kendall with Improtech, Hibbs and Todd, going to make a short presentation and discuss a little bit about the agreements that we need.
Chris, how do you want me to do the presentation, or you have that loaded?
Did you send it to us?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Is it loaded? Can you run it for him? Is there a clicker?
There we go. That's my biggest thing, or I can just.
Where's the? Do you have the clicker? You can change the screen.
If not, I'll just signal you if you want.
I usually have one up here, but it's not here today. Everybody's on vacation.
There we go.
Forward. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Mayor, council members, good evening. For the record, my name is Keith Kendall with Improtech Hibbs and Todd as Chief Operating Officer, 2901 Glen Rose Highway, Granbury, Texas. Wanted to present to you tonight regarding the water treatment plant, and kind of an outline of what we're going to talk a little bit about tonight is where you're at on your existing water capacity for treatment, the water demand conditions upon that treatment, some of the elements that are included in the Phase 2 water treatment plant expansion to take it to 5 million gallons per day. That's the 5 MGD. And then associated items to do that are, of course, the drinking water SRF financial application, the engineering contract to prepare that application, and also approval to procure what we call a construction manager at risk, or CMAR. We've had a lot of recent success in the CMAR contract, as you're aware of, on the water transmission line project. We have also had past success tremendously on plant projects with CMAR, and I will get into a little bit more of the advantages of why we want to do that as we go through the presentation. This is probably the most important slide of the night, as I want to talk about here. During the SWATS area, as you were getting water from the SWATS plant and your groundwater, you had a total of, and your existing water treatment plant, you had a total of about 3.82 million gallons per day. And then, of course, the contract for SWATS then went away, and also the 400,000 gallon per day water treatment plant went away, and both of those were subsequently replaced with the new 2.5 million gallon a day water treatment plant. So if you look on the right column under current, one item to note is the groundwater has actually been reduced by 140,000 gallons because we have shut down, or the city has shut down some of the wells, that because of the water quality being so bad, it is just not worth continuing to operate those and put them into the system. It's actually detrimental to the system, and continuing to operate it, the effort is just not worth the outcome. So when you add all that up, and once you've done the Phase 1 expansion, counting everything that's gone, you're only looking at a couple of 100,000 of additional capacity. You basically replaced what you had before. So any additional growth from the time that we started this water treatment plant and moving forward with construction has been eating into that 200,000 gallons per day. So when we talk about the number of retail connections where we're at now, there's 5,679 connections. TCEQ requires you to supply 0.6 gallons per minute per connection. Comparing that with where we would at for what we have for current capacity, we're at 124%. We're overutilized per the TCEQ guidelines. One of the things, and knowing that, is we wanted to go back and get what is called an alternative capacity requirement, or an ACR. That basically reduces that requirement of 0.6 GPM to 0.43 GPM, and we were successful in doing that. However, once you look on the slide on the right, using the ACR, alternative capacity requirements, we're now at 90% of capacity within it. And that's not counting all the plats that you've already approved for the subdivisions that are coming in that will have those same requirements for cost per connect, or demand per connection. So actual flows that we've had, the highest was, of course, in 2011 or 2016, where we had 3.41 MGD. But the significance of that 90% of the ACR is in that second bullet where it says TCEQ requires you to start planning for expansion when the public utility has reached 85% of its capacity. We're past that point now. within it. So even using, like we noticed at the ACR, you're at 90%. So TCEQ hasn't sent you a formal letter, but under the guidelines and requirements, you are supposed to be in planning for the second phase of the water treatment plant already. So what is the second phase of the water treatment plant? Of course, we built a larger building to accommodate that second phase. So a lot of the items that I listed here are major equipment, just go into the existing building of what we have. I've got a couple of exhibits later in this presentation to show you, but I'm not going to read every one off, but of course the raw water pumps and then our membrane filtration and our RO that we'll need. Another significant item will be the additional 1 million gallon clear well. We do not have a lot of storage out there. We do meet the TCEQ requirements, but from an operating standpoint or peak day, you really need additional storage right there at that water treatment plant to be able to pump out treated water during days of really high demand and have some of the additional storage for a safety factor. The only new structures that we're looking at for the water treatment plant is that new raw water pumping platform where we already have an existing one, and then 2 additional pre-treatment basins. This kind of shows you the outline of what I'm talking about. This is mostly the equipment that is going in. The additional raw water pump station platform is shown on the very, very far left, and on the very, very far right is the additional 1 million gallon clear well of the property that you acquired when we were building the water treatment plant there. This is going inside the membrane building, of course, replacing the membrane filtration as well as putting another RO rack in and their associated pumps that they need with them to operate. Here's the heart of the presentation. Besides the capacity, this is the cost. These, of course, estimated costs, but they're based on our most recent estimates we've got in addition to contacting manufacturers, the vendors, and suppliers. The total cost for phase 2, if we get to 5 MGD, is $13,520,000. The project schedule as we go forward, keeping in mind that we're already at 90% capacity, is June 2018 to submit a drinking water SRF application for the phase 2. With their timeline of review and commitment by the board, we'd be looking at a board commitment about September of 2018, and normally it's 60 to 90 days to close on the funds. We've assumed 60 days, so we're looking at November of 2018. Design, about 9 months. TCQ and Water Development Board approval, 3 months built into that. And then construction we have at 15 months. Now, that doesn't mean all of that's sequential. Some of that can happen parallel. And this is really what I want to get into, the advantages of the CMAR. By bringing on a construction manager at risk, we can do what is called an extended CMAR, where some of the long lead items, such as the membranes and the membrane filtration items and other associated pumps and things like that, we can go ahead and bring a CMAR on this summer once we've got design up to a certain stage and have what we call the guaranteed maximum price, a GMP, similar to what y'all have been familiar with for water transmission lines, to go ahead and start ordering those long lead items within it. You don't pay for all those up front. There's just a certain percentage down, and then we'll pay for everything once it goes. The other advantage is, while we're doing this design, we're also getting constructability reviews from the CMAR in addition to his input, and we get an accelerated schedule as we go forward. As these items come in and as we get design done and reviewed, they can start on those different elements and going forward so we can accelerate the construction. And the nice thing about CMAR, as you saw, is design, bid, build. We go all the way to 100% set of plans, then we bid, and then we start construction. CMAR, I get the 60% of plans. I send those to the CMAR at that time. He gives you a guaranteed maximum price, and off we go. And going forward with that. So it's, as you've seen with the water transmission lines, it's a rapid process and accelerated schedule that it offers. So what that brings us to at the end of this is, in order to begin phase 2, part of the approval of this engineering contract is we're requesting that under that contract we go ahead and submit the drinking water SRF application for that funding, and we also, part of our application, to prepare the procurement documents for the CMAR. To go forward with that procurement once we've got design up to a certain stage that it's appropriate to do so. So with that, I'll be glad to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you, Keith.
Yes,
Council, is any questions for Keith?
Mayor.
Councilman Camp.
Keith, 2-3 years ago when we were in the development of this, did you anticipate we'd be at 90% at this time of 2018?
Yeah, a matter of fact, if you go back to some of the presentations, the time I'm on record saying, keep in mind that we're replacing 1.72 of SWATs and 400,000 gallons of your existing plant. So you're only going to have 200,000 to 300,000 gallons of capacity for new. You know, where we're going to be at, I know with the ACR, of course, we didn't have it at that time, but I was hoping we would, be at the 85%, but I'm not surprised, as I indicated, 200,000, 300,000 is not very much once you've got the new plant online, and it's something that I, quite frankly, was trying to prepare y'all for, hoping that y'all recognize that for the city the size that we are, just adding 200,000, 300,000 in capacity, you're not gaining a whole lot with this first phase.
Yeah, I just want to be clear that the public understands that this was anticipated.
Gary, speak in your mic there, will you please?
It really is a matter of when. Like I said, you're at 85% to start the planning. Obviously with the growth that we've been seeing, and probably the thing that most, I wouldn't say concerning, but I think it's a good practice, is with all the plats that you've already got approved and going forward, you're way above that. We need to get ahead of the curve instead of behind it at this point in time.
And so we'll accomplish a bigger chunk with phase 2 because we don't have the offset of the
and then
reduction.
The next question obviously is, okay, so we do phase 2, how long does that last?
Yeah.
and based on the growth that we are projecting in the CIP plan and looking at the impact of fee assessment, it takes you to about 2045. Obviously, if you get faster growth, that's going to shorten, the 2040 or so, but really think, you're going to be between 2040 and 2050 by the time you're looking to do phase 3.
Really?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Mobley.
Thanks. Yeah. The cost of borrowing. So let's talk about a couple of things. Number one, the cost of construction. If we put this off, and it doesn't sound like there's any debate on that, we've got to do something to handle the growth. Is that correct? Yes. Within that's otherwise you're going to have to answer the TCQ while you're not even starting the planning yet because you're above the 85%, and there can be some consequences with that as well. The other two factors that concern me more is I think we really saw this, and the going back of how long we delayed the first phase of this water treatment plant, and the cost that increased incrementally with that. That was considerable hit upon the city on that first increase to get to where we were at within it. And those costs aren't going down. The second factor, as I know you can appreciate more, is we're in a rising interest rate market. Right.
The sooner we can lock down these type of CIP projects that have major costs with them, I think the better the city will be from an interest rate standpoint, because we're still seeing interest rates, well below I just closed on one at 1.4. A year ago I was closing below 1, but I'm old enough to remember when I was thinking 3.5 was a great deal.
Right.
So we're still in a historically low interest rate market at this point in time.
Right. So as far as the debt service on this, if we borrow that amount of money, we do it over 30 years, and it's even at 2%. Let's say we see an astronomical jump between now and the time of approval. We're still talking about $50,000 a month to service that debt and to pay it off in 30 years. I guess my question to Chris, and I don't know if Ava's here or not, is what's that going to do to our ability to service this debt and our bond ratings going forward?
That one's above my pay grade.
That's why I look past you.
I understand, yeah.
I'd be glad to contribute to that. Really, we don't have a choice to say no to finding water from somewhere. So this is the path that we chose, I guess, in 2008, and have been moving towards this incrementally since then. So it's been 10 years in the making. And as it was said, yes, we've been telling our bond rating agencies these things are coming, our growth is occurring, the added debt's going to be coming. We don't know exactly when that's going to be. So that conversation is taking place with our bond rating agencies all along. To me, it's a lot more than what we anticipated back 3 years ago when we were talking about this for phase 2, because you can see it's just about $3 million less than what we've just got through building. And so these are components that go inside that existing building. So I'm hoping that going through the CMAR process, we'll see a reduced cost because those guys work really hard to do a cost savings as they procure this stuff for us through that process. But as far as our bond rating, I don't like borrowing any more money than I have to at my home, and so you want your credit rating at home to stay up, and we understand if we're leveraged too deep that negatively impacts us. We have plenty of bonding capacity still, and we're going to be using some of that in the future for other infrastructure projects too, as we get a little further down the road here. Everybody needs to know our sewer plant is on its last leg and is going to need an extensive rehabilitation, and that's millions of dollars, and the capacity is not going to be able to be met at that facility, so we're looking at having to build a new sewer plant right around the corner as well. So this is an incremental step to moving forward to address our infrastructure for the next generation, and we're going to have to pay for it. So the capacity's there. You know, there may be, I was telling Mr. Couch, Councilmember Couch today, that when we get a full year of operating that desal plant, we'll be able to look at the rates and have an actual cost of what we're paying for treated water compared to what we were paying. And you know, the rates we haven't reduced since we went onto this program with the water and making our own water instead of buying it from SWATs. And so we anticipate that we'll be able to reduce rates even and still service this debt. I can't prove that yet, but that would be my,
don't tease us like that.
That would be my hope.
Don't you do that, Chris.
But the bottom line is we were buying water at a very expensive rate, and you know, then we borrowed money to replace that expensive water, and the more you pump through that plant, the lower unit cost will be. And so we've got to get there to where we're maximizing that. And I'm surprised that we're having to move this quick. You know, I really hope that we could go another year before we had to have this conversation. But based on the growth and the stuff we've talked about in economic development in the back room, I think we're obligated to at least look at this and move forward as quick as possible. You know, I'm just hoping that we can figure out some way to save on some engineering costs here, sir. You knew that was coming.
I knew that was coming, absolutely.
Well, and so we've got two components here. The distribution, the blue pipes laying all over town, that's a separate component.
That's the separate.
Now, when we approve that, we look long-term for that. So
correct,
as far as capacity there, we're still good.
You may remember when you approved that, we gave you some alternatives. You can do this for just the 2.5. You can do this for the 5 MGD. We did it for the 5 MGD. So I'm not going to be coming back going, oops, by the way, there's another distribution improvement, you know, that we're going to have to do because you're now at 5 MGD. Right. We do have some more before you later on tonight, but that's associated with.
Let me stop you right there. Carla, can you put that in the notes?
Yeah, absolutely.
We got him on video.
Yeah.
I will state clearly, we have told you that distribution system will work for 5 MGD, and we'll stand by that.
Very good. So I guess the only other solution, if we wanted to say, hey, we don't want to spend this money, is we've got to quit approving development. And that's really our only solution, because otherwise we're going to hit capacity.
That will be the letter you get if you don't do anything, and at some point that will be the letter you get from TCEQ.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that's the message that needs to be taken from here, because we have a lot of folks say, gosh, all you do is spend money and my rates go up and what I pay goes up. But we have to stay ahead of the curve as far as this goes, because this is our number one challenge here, is water. Because without water, everything goes. Anyway, thanks for everything you do.
Actually, go a little bit further. Without infrastructure, you don't have the economic development, period.
Thanks, Keith.
I got a question there.
Councilman Allen.
Mr. Kendall.
Yes, sir.
I was on that council when you brought this to us, and we had a different public works director than we got now. And when you did this, you did tell us we might be short on water, and our public works director said, I've got 10 new wells going online. I see that look on your face. I did the same. It didn't work out. And we didn't get to the gallons per minute we thought we would out of the wells. But, you know, I just paid my water bill at my home $560. And I'm telling you, I don't pump out of the lake. And, you know, I'd like to see our rates go down for all, not just for me, but for all of our citizens. We did the same thing with electrical. We should be coming down on it for long. But as long as we keep spending money, and I know we got to on certain things, our rates are never going down. They're going to go up. And that's not fair to our citizens. You told us that back then, I'm going by memory, that we could add a 5 MGD, I think is what you call it, for around $5 million. And I'm going to go back and check the record because I think I asked if we had to have a new building or anything, and y'all said, no, just got to add another unit. This is built, we can add another unit,
That's the 2008 figure, Tony?
It was probably 2008, whenever we approved it.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, the 2008, I think we were at $5 million, when I had to go back.
But I'm saying, when you said you were going to add another, like you're adding now.
Right.
We were talking somewhere in the neighborhood of $5 million. And it jumped from 5 to 13. I know things went up. But I don't remember recalling that we had to have a new water tower and we had to have all this other stuff.
No, the clear well is new. There's no doubt about that. Within it, and looking at it and discussing with staff of what they have of existing clear well capacity, and it's something that we've talked about. It's optional, but it's what we would recommend that you have that once you go to 5 MGD to buffer your peak day supply, because you've got your clear well that you've got there is pretty small and pretty old within it. And yeah, we did rehab work with the water treatment plant, but the 1 MG would really help the operations of that within it. We've got it included in there. And certainly if the city wanted to do a bid alternate at some point to evaluate it, then we can put it in as a bid alternate within it. The plant can run at 5 MGD without it, but I think in talking with the operations staff and also going over as we have with the city staff and communicating with them in review, the 1 million gallon is what we wanted to include in the project to get that factor of safety to meet the peak day demands, because as you continue to grow, that peak day demand factor is probably going to change somewhat as you go forward.
The other question is that our city manager brought it up about our sewer plant.
Yes.
What's TCQ's requirements on it?
75 and 90. Once you get to 75%, you need to start planning. And then once you get to 90%, you need to be in construction.
In construction.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
where are we at now?
75.
63.
So how long will it be before we need that?
We're going to talk to you about that in a little bit.
I mean,
I'm
that's
going to
a
just tell you,
$30-40 million deal.
you need a 1 million gallon sewer plant PDQ.
Yeah. So we're talking about, 30-40 million for that,
Pretty darn quick.
plus 13 here. How are we going to pay for this? I'm like Mr. Motley. I mean, I know it's necessary. Have you got a plan?
Impact fees and revenue from the services provided to the users.
Well, you got impact fees of about $4,000 a house.
And they're fixing to go up because they're doing that study, if you'll recall. So,
Okay, so they go up to 7,000.
yeah.
How many houses you got to build to pay to service that debt?
Yeah, I know.
You ain't gonna build that many houses inside the city limits of Granbury unless we annex from here to Glen Rose and here to Stephenville.
Okay, so what do you want to do?
Well, I think we got to pick and choose.
Now
here.
water?
You pick and choose what?
Which one we got to do first?
The water.
Yeah.
You're fixed to be under TCQ, mandatory fines and assessments. And it happened a whole lot quicker than we anticipated.
Not knowing what we're going to discuss in the back room, I mean, I don't think we got a choice here. I really don't. But
I
on the
think
other hand,
you need to gear yourself to spend about $30 million. And I've told you all that.
That's for the sewer plant.
That's for everything that I'm talking about.
Sewer and water?
For now.
Well, that's just putting a
Well,
that's not
no,
putting a
I
new
think
plant in.
I think we need to back up. We got to rehab the existing plant and build a new plant.
Yeah.
And I don't know that those costs are exact, but it's excess of $30 million.
For a new plant,
And rehab the old.
rehab that one. That's a lot better than what we heard last time.
No?
Yeah.
Well, we just need to have that, if you need to table this action till after executive session, we can do that.
And Mr.
Okay,
Allen, part of
a
that,
lot.
part of that is the planning and part of this. Like you said, we're at 63%, so
Yeah.
we've got some time to get it. At 75%, we ought to be spending money, starting to the planning portion of it and doing the things that we need to do to plan for the
Agree
water
with you.
treatment plant.
I agree, and that's what my next question was. The way we're growing right now, how many years would it be before we get in trouble?
And
Within a year.
Within a year.
Within a year.
if I could, if I could,
I rest my case.
I'm telling you, get ready to spend some money.
and if I could interject a little bit, we're talking about just getting at 75% capacity, but without getting more in our presentation later tonight, though, you've also got considerations of existing conditions at the wastewater treatment plant, and you're going to have to make the choice of putting money in as a temporary Band-Aid, and I mean significant money, millions within it. We're not talking about 1 million. It's going to be it's not going to be a Band-Aid. It's going to be 6 or 7 million as a Band-Aid, and all you get is remaining capacity for maybe another 5 years, 10 years within it, versus doing substantial rehab. So capacity is one item that's driving it, but existing condition of the wastewater treatment plant is another. And I know that some of you all have taken tours of the wastewater treatment plant. You know exactly what I'm talking about on the headworks and some of the other items where the concrete's eroded away and the rebar is exposed and the clarifier train is traveling on nothing to some point. So, I mean, there's significant items with that, and that's not anything but fault. That plant has got items that are already over 20 years old. They've reached their design life, and it also has some existing items all the way back to 1988 within it. So they only last so long.
If we do this deal right here, are you saying we'd be good with water for, even with our growth expectation, we'd be good for, you said
45.
40? 45?
Yep.
Yeah, you'll be set for this for a while.
Yeah.
Based on the growth that's projected in your
So by the time
Your
we're going to
CIP
get
and
paid
your
for, we're going to do
comprehensive
it
plan.
again.
You'll probably be mayor by then.
No, I'm not going to be mayor. One other question. It sounds stupid because I'm saying save money. But are we better off to put in a bigger one and keep going here? Say like put in 2 5s instead of 1 5 or 2.5 at this point.
I would know, because you don't have enough demand to justify that, and you're going to, when you mothball those type of processes, we're trying to switch it over, it would be really problematic. Josh could probably go on, but I would not recommend. That's way above what you need, and my experience has been when I've seen that before, even though we tell the operators to operate off both, they don't get used enough. It's kind of like driving your car. The more you drive it, the longer it lasts. Sometimes instead of just putting it up in your garage and not doing anything with it, that little light use, especially when you get into membranes and RO, becomes really problematic, because there isn't a real partial use of those. We either want to be using a lot of it or none of it, and then you've got to pickle it by that, put it in the mothballs, and then another operation to take it out and put it in. So, Tony, going to 7.5 MGD, I would not recommend. And the other thing that we've talked about in doing our CIP planning is, do we really want to keep centralizing all the treatment here in the city, or do we want to look at different areas as well for the water treatment plant for another 2.5 MGD or 1 MGD or whatever that may be later on within it?
But if we do this here tonight, and I won't be here in 2045, but will they have to build a new building at that time, or will it be big enough to handle it, or would they need a bigger tank? Any of that stuff?
So if you, based on your growth and everything, you should be able to handle it fine. Yes.
What we got now? Okay. I'm thinking of my grandkids.
And I'm,
That's you.
Go ahead.
I think what he's talking about is, we planned this building to host a phase 3.
Yes.
And that's what he was talking about,
I
possibly
know.
just go ahead and doing the whole thing and getting it over with, and then at the prices today. But like you say, incremental use of those RO systems is detrimental to them. So, you can spend another $10 million, while you're at it, but you're going to be spending. You've lost your point of diminishing return.
I truly think it'll be an operational nightmare from that regard. And you also talked about the O&M cost. The more you put through it, the less that goes down. Where your O&M costs are going to run really, really high put that under that scenario.
And then the other question that you mentioned and what we talked about, for economic development reasons, spreading out these components in the future instead of making everything right here in the heart of everything. And that relates to economic development and what we're going to be talking about and how we need to move forward from there. But in all reality, we've been growing at a rapid rate, and the amount of plats that we have approved on file and have received to approve exceeds our water capacity is already exceeded, and our sewer capacity is exceeded. So we need to be building plants as quickly as possible. And that's bad news, and that's what we've been working on for over a year to try to figure out, and it shouldn't come as a shock. We've talked about it.
So what you're saying is the city manager says spend money, and the council needs to vote and put it on us.
What I'm saying is my recommendation to you is we need to have enough water to serve our community within the guidelines that the state requires, and we also need to have water sewer capacity in those same framework. And we've got to do that in an environmental friendly way. And you know, we're right here on the lake, and we're very sensitive to that. Our water is salty and it's expensive to treat. That's our source. That's the way we've adopted this program years ago. And we made a decision at some point in Granbury that we're going to use Lake Granbury for our source of water. And that's what we've married to that idea. And that's why we were the first city in the United States to have a residential desal unit. That was very cutting edge back in 1980 and we put that in, and we were the only city in the United States with a desal unit treating water. So we've been along this a long time, and that's the way we've committed. And it's unfortunate that the water is salty, but it is, and it's more salty at sometimes than others, and so that makes it even more difficult. But what we're putting back in is cleaner than what we took out. And
Where
we're
would
very
you get
proud.
the water if you didn't do it that way?
We would have to be buying wholesale water from a water field or a supplier somewhere else.
A lot more money.
Well, I don't know. You know, you go to the city of Midland, they put in a 230-mile water pipeline to a well field that their council proactively bought in the 1960s so they'd have water in the future decades, and they put that in, and their water rates are higher than ours, but they have water. They have adequate water.
Can we do it cheaper than $13,500,000?
No. That ship has sailed.
Just kidding, Keith.
Sail.
Well, he likes engineering anywhere you put him, so it doesn't matter to him what we do. But the fact is Lake Granbury is our water source. And as long as Lake Granbury is our water source, we've got to treat that water.
I know Mr. Campbell's the one that did that, and I'm proud of you, Mr. Campbell. Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
But we've got water in the lake now that we bought way back then that we need to use.
Amen.
Okay, council, this it's not a public hearing here. Okay, any more questions for Mr. Keith Kendall?
I have no more myself.
No more questions? Okay, at this time, if no more questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve the engineering service agreement with Hibbs and Todd as stated.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilman Mobley
Second.
and a second by Councilman Reiner. Council, any more discussion? If no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. That is approved. Thank you, Keith, for your presentation.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Work on getting that dollar amount down.
We'll get it.
Our next item is to consider adopting resolution, let's see if that's where I'm at, yes. Consider adopting resolution 18-10 authorizing Pepper Lawson Waterworks LLC to proceed with construction service guaranteed maximum price. I'm going to call upon Chris Kaufman to give us a staff report on that, or maybe call upon a staff person.
At this time, I'll just turn it back over to Keith Kendall and let him.
Oh, Keith is
do it
here.
again. Good to see you, Keith. Thanks for coming to our meeting tonight.
Make sure you introduce yourself.
Yes, sir. Keith Kendall with Protect Hibbs and Todd. Again, thank you for being able to be here before you tonight. This is one of the items we discussed because of the savings that we've been able to accomplish with the 3 other water development board projects. We have additional funds that we've identified, additional water transmission lines that we felt like would benefit the city in going forward. And so before we let the contractor go that's currently doing the water transmission lines, we have come up with additional water lines that we feel like will benefit the city in going forward with that at a cost that's substantially less than if the city wanted to do it. And you know, quite frankly, it helps the city in a long-term manner with both the water transmission line and the water distribution as they go forward in the future for a relatively low cost and going with that. So we have had the CMAR, Pepper Lawson has worked with us to come up with this guaranteed maximum price of number 4 that would take your GMP 3 that you approved from $12,055,000 to $13,550,884. That will require some utility funds that y'all recently we've approved and going forward, I believe, with the ordinance, if that was the same one, Chris, if I correctly. So you know, we're prepared to move. It's a very short timeline. They would like to start construction in June. We, of course, have already done the design, and we submitted it to Texas Water Development Board for review. We have also requested them to do a concurrent review for environmental clearance on the proposed lines that are included in this project as well. So I think we're well on the way to meeting the June 1 deadline. We believe that in discussions with the city that these additional water lines will really help the city in the future as they go forward, and it just adds to the water transmission line system that we've already done, far and above once we go to 5 MGD within it. So be glad to answer any questions regarding this that I can.
Thank you, Keith. I think council has a handout here also that was handed to us here just before this. You can see the
and just to finish up, we'd be looking at November 2018, I think the end of December by the time we do project closeout. So that's your timeline that we'd be looking at for these improvements.
Council, any questions for Mr. Kendall?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilman Mobley?
So keeping the contractor here saves us money. What would you estimate it saved us?
Oh, gosh.
As opposed to them coming back?
Oh, I would say probably about $250,000 to $300,000.
Okay, so that's
just for your mobilization and your demobilization, and because of it.
So if we would have covered up what we saved and with that revenue, you think your price would have been higher or lower? I'm amazed at the fact that we had $2 million and you came within $174 of this.
Oh, we budgeted.
No, that's
right.
Yeah.
I don't know, would you think it would be
We
higher
created
or
this
lower?
budget. This is our created budget.
I thought this was.
No.
No,
It is.
we added the 840 in there
Thank
to
you.
end up with this budget.
Okay, my misunderstanding. Like I said, we
Yeah.
just got this as we
Right.
sat down today. So you're off the hook.
That's why I'm smiling.
Yeah.
So the AMI project, we had a $342,000 savings. And the water treatment plant, we had a $395,000 savings. And the water transmission lines, we've got a $592,000 savings. And so you add all that together, plus the $840,000 budget amendment from the utility fund, you end up with the $2.07 million project. And of course, that has some contingency built in there. That's why that $174 in red doesn't really matter.
So where are we gonna get the 174?
I'll pay it.
Hey, we heard it.
Did you get that in the minutes, Carla?
So move.
He won't move.
We won't need it. Keith Kendall will pay it.
So basically, we backed into this number. Is that correct?
Yeah, we built the budget amendment based on the cost of the
Okay, perfect.
part
Thank you.
A, B, and C that we looked at.
Councilman, more questions for Mr. Kendall? Very good, Keith. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
This time I'll entertain a motion to adopt the Resolution 1810 authorizing Pepper Lawson Waterworks LLC to proceed with the construction service as stated.
So moved.
I have a motion by Councilman Corrigan
Second.
and a second by Councilman Allen. Council, any more discussion on this item? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Item number 9 is approved.
Thank you very much. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
At this time, I'll now declare that the Granbury City Council is convened in open session, that all the members are present. The City Council will now go into closed session pursuant to the provisions of the Texas Government Code in accordance with the authority contained in these following sections. Section 551087, deliberation economic development. Section 551071, consultation with our attorney. Section 551072, deliberation regarding real property. And Section 551074, personnel matters. Council is now reconvened into open session. There was no action taken in closed session. Council, is there any more discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Mobley.
yeah, I'd like to make a motion to allow the city manager to move forward on the due diligence for the land purchase for future infrastructure site.
We have a motion. Do you have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Councilman Allen. Council, any discussion on this motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. That motion is approved. We'll look forward to the city manager doing that. Any more discussion, council? If no further discussion, council meeting is adjourned.